Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. Today we will talk about some fundamental concepts of Xiu Dao, which will help you understand Dao's practice on a deeper level. But first, let's warm up with Dao De Jing commentary and Xiu Dao. Today's sentence is 常善救人 from chapter 27 of the Dao De Jing. At the beginning of this chapter, Lao Tzu used 5 examples to illustrate the importance of Wu Wei or non-action, a key concept in Taoism. He said, translated quote, "The skillful traveler leaves no trace behind him. The skillful speaker says without a flaw. The skillful counter keeps no checks to remind him. The skillful locker requests no bolts or bars, and the skillful binders needs no cords or knots or strings. Yet it's impossible to open or loosen afterwards." End translated quote. Then Lao Tzu said, quote, 是以乘人常善救人，故无弃人；常善救物，故无弃物，是谓神习明。End quote. Translation: In the same way, the sage is always skillful at saving people, and so he does not cast away anyone. He is always skillful at saving things, and so he does not cast away anything. This is called hiding the light of his wisdom. End translation. In other words, the sage nurtures everyone and abandons no one. He accepts everything and rejects nothing. So, today's term 常善救人 is from these sentences. 常 means always, constantly. 善 means good at. 救 means save, help. 人 means people. Put together, it means that the sage is good at saving others. Then Lao Tzu continued by saying the translated quote. Therefore, the man of skill is the master to be looked up to by he who has no skill. He who has no skill is the helper of the reputation of he who has the skill. End translated quote. In Xiu Dao practice, this sentence, especially the term 常善救人, is used to describe the right attitude toward the energy refinement process. For example, yang energy will rise during practice. At this moment, one should apply the right level of the fire in order to ensure the ingredients to be processed meet the requirement. If the fire level is not strong or the mind does not apply the right level of focus, the elixir would not get refined. At the same time, if the fire level is too strong or the applies an excessive level of focus on the energy will not accumulate. So, what is the solution? The solution is to adopt the Wu Wei concept that one should follow the natural way of the body's energetic reaction at the subconscious level instead of a forced approach. Dao, or the prenatal energy, is used to nourish our spirit, and this prenatal energy should be handled naturally, which reflects the concept of Wu Wei or non-action. In many ancient Xiu Dao documents, this is called 和车自运 or water will operates automatically. It means that one should let the water well or our internal energy operate itself instead of forcing it with our mind. If it's forced by the mind, it will be called carrying and transporting energy by visualization, which violates the Taoist principle of Wu Wei or non-action. In other words, a wrong practice. So, the water well should operate by following the Tian Dao or the Dao of heaven, the natural way. This is the major difference between the authentic traditional Taoist practice compared to the modern approach. Taoist practice emphasizes the static approach in terms of rising yang energy. It is especially important at the beginning. So, understanding the Dao De Jing will also help you understand Xiu Dao practice. With that, let's move on to today's main topic. Topics covered in today's video include: first, the fundamental step before the 4 main steps. Second, historical background of the key terms in external elixir practice. Third, how to practice internal elixir based on these terms. Fourth, principles of the practice of these terms. Fifth, misperceptions, and sixth, takeaways. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Topic 1. The fundamental step before the 4 main steps. Xiu Dao practice is the systematic way to refine the energy of the body. In prior videos, I introduced the 4 main steps: 炼精化气 or refine the essence to energy, 炼气化神 or refine energy to spirit, 炼神还虚 or refine spirit to emptiness, and 虚神合道 or empty the spirit and merge with the Tao. So the question is, are those the very first 4 steps, or is there something that comes before them? Yes, there is. The step that comes before these 4 steps is called 筑基. 筑 means to build, 基 means foundation. Put together, 筑基 means to build the foundation for further practice. Very often, it is also called 百日筑基. 百 means 100, and 日 means days. Put together, 百日 means 100 days. So, 百日筑基 means 100 days of building the foundation practice. At face value, it may seem as if a practitioner needs only 100 days to build a strong foundation for further training. However, in Chinese culture, the term 100 days actually means a long time. It could also be less than 100 days, but usually it means hundreds of days. So, when you practice the 筑基 step, please do not enforce a hard limit of exactly 100 days and assume your foundation to be strong enough for the subsequent 4 steps of practice. So, briefly speaking, 筑基, or building the foundation, is a step that prepares the body and the mind to practice the 4 main specific procedures of energy refinement of Xiu Dao. Some specific steps are part of building the foundation practice. In today's video, I will introduce 2 main steps in this practice: 补漏 and 还原. I will explain these 2 terms in the following sections. To summarize, there is an important step before the 4 main steps of the 修道 practice. That step is called 筑基 or building the foundation, or 百日筑基 or 100 days of building the foundation. Now, let's talk about the historical background of the 3 key terms, 筑基, 补漏, and 还原, which brings us to the next topic. Topic 2. Historical background of the key terms in external elixir practice. I have talked about the history of the development of 内丹 or internal elixir practice in prior videos. Let's quickly review it first. In Tao's history, external elixir practice, or 外丹, was much more popular in the early years. However, with time, people gradually realized that the internal elixir, or the practice of internal energy refinement, could bring real benefits to its practitioners. With the gradual development of internal elixir practice in terms of theory and practice, about 1,200 years ago, internal elixir practice became the dominant 修道 practice and continues to be so to this day. Since external elixir practice, or the method of burning different materials such as cinnabar, realgar, and many other ingredients to create the elixir was more popular back then, technical terms used in external elixir practice were also adopted to describe internal elixir practice. Since both systems were practiced simultaneously, the reusing of names was very practical back then. However, with time, the external elixir practice became less popular. At the same time, the terms originally used in external elixir practice have remained in usage in internal elixir practice. And that historical factor has led to a lot of confusion for later generations of practitioners. But from another perspective, since internal elixir practice was considered a secret in history, accessible to only a small group of people, this method of using external elixir terms in internal elixir practice actually helped the practitioners keep it a secret from the public, ensuring its exclusivity. So, to understand the terms used in the internal elixir practice better, I will talk further about the external elixir practice and then elaborate on the same terms in the context of internal elixir practice. Now, let's try to imagine what a Taoist external elixirist or alchemist in ancient times would do to refine the elixir. Well, he would first collect different materials, or 药物, a burner, or 鼎, and a stove, or 炉. Then he was ready to start. However, he needed to find an environment suitable to the process, especially a place with strong and suitable ground. To do so, he had to clean up the place and also make sure the soil was solid. So, the step involving finding the right place and making the ground solid was called 筑基, or building the foundation. Then he had to put the stove on solid ground and ensure the stove stood stable. This step was called 安炉. 安 means fixed or stabilized. 炉 means stove. Put together, it was the step in which one had to choose the right place to stabilize the stove. Then he had to put the burner on the stove. The burner was the container that contained different ingredients, and then the fire burning in the stove would heat the burner in order to refine those ingredients to form the elixir. So, the step to put the burner on the stove was called 立鼎. 立 means to make things stand up. 鼎 means burner. Many types of 鼎 existed, some of them being very fancy. Literally speaking, it was the step in which the 鼎 or burner would stand on the 炉 or stove. But the technology to build burners was not very advanced, especially in the ancient times. For example, in the early stages, burners were made from clay instead of metal, requiring the elixirist to repair the burner before setting the fire in the stove to avoid leakage and wasting of the precious elixir. So the step and the method to repair the burner was called 还原. 还 means to return to, and 原 means origin. Put together, it means the step to restore the stove to its original state, a state in which a stove would function well. Then the elixirist set up the fire in the stove, and the burner that contained different ingredients started burning. To avoid ingredients such as mercury getting evaporated away from the burner, the elixirist had to place a lid on top of the burner. Sometimes burning would still cause leakage, so the elixirist had to repair the burner to stop the leakage. This step and method was called 止漏. 止 means to stop, 漏 means leaking. Put together, 止漏 means to stop leakage. By the way, 止漏 and 补漏 are largely interchangeable. Then the elixirist had to very carefully manage the temperature by adjusting the level of a fire by controlling the amount of wind blown to the stove. So, wind and fire were two critical factors to manage the temperature of the stove in the process of refining the ingredients in the burner. This process could take months or even years before the ingredients fully transformed to the expected external elixir. So, those were the basic steps used in history to produce the external elixir or 外丹. Now, internal elixir or 内丹 practitioners borrowed the same terms to describe the internal energy practice. Since Xiu Dao practitioners took the body as the stove and the burner, the Jing, Qi, and the Shen, or essence, energy, and the spirit as ingredients. The same terms had been attributed to a new level of meanings. Now, let's talk about how the terms used in external elixir practice have also been used in internal elixir practice, and the relationship between them in the next topic. Topic 3. How to practice internal elixir based on these terms. So, internal practitioners perceived the whole body as the stove and the burner. Let's quickly recall the steps involved in the external elixir practice mentioned in the last section and compare them with the internal elixir practice. The first step of the external elixir practice was to choose the right place in order to stabilize the stove. To internal practitioners, The equivalent step would be making sure that our body and mind are in a condition well suited for practice. To do so, one has to relax and stabilize both the body and mind. This is part of the step to build the foundation or 筑基, a term originally used in the external elixir practice. In external practice, the step was to repair the burner to make it ready to contain the ingredients. In Tao's internal practice, our body has to be repaired before the main step of our practice. In Taoism, our spirit has to be nourished since our prenatal and postnatal energies are in the process of constantly being consumed or wasted due to our daily activities such as working, thinking, emotional stimulation, and so on. Especially with the aging process, our prenatal energy will be consumed more and more. Without the right method, our energy will eventually get exhausted. So, through the 筑基 or building the foundation process, we will be able to make our body healthy and strong by replenishing different types of energy, which is another part of building the foundation. More precisely, this step of making our body healthy and strong is called 还原, or return to the original state, the term borrowed from external elixir practice. Then, the practitioner has to stop the worldly way of doing. For example, instead of looking outward, he has to focus inward. Instead of using a deep and strong breathing method, he has to adopt a shallow and slow breathing method. Instead of letting the mind wander, he has to relax the mind and may have to focus naturally on a certain area of the body, and so on. Since the Taoist concept emphasizes that any worldly activities cause a leakage of vital energy, one has to elevate the factors causing those leaks by using the right Taoist method. This is the process of 止漏 or stop leaking, the same term as the one used in the external elixir practice to stop ingredients leaking away from the burner. For the rest of the video, I will use 补漏 and not 止漏. The ingredients used in external elixir refinement have a specific meaning when used in the internal practice, which I have talked about in previous videos. For example, the video titled Supreme Medicine in 修道, 修道number 3. The link is in the description. As for some other terms such as wind and fire, they mean energy breathing and mental activity respectively in internal elixir practice. Check out my video titled From the Power of Nature to the Nature of Power, Wind and Fire, 修道number 4. The link is in the description. My full 修道 playlist is also mentioned in the description. These videos will help you understand some key concepts, especially terminologies used in 修道 on a deeper level. So, 3 new terms and their practice method in 修道 have been elaborated. 筑基 or building the foundation, 还原 or to return to the original state, and 补漏 or to stop and repair the leakage. These 3 terms are very important. Their inner relationships is as follows. 筑基 includes 还原 and 补漏。筑基 is the overall step, while 还原 and 补漏 are sub-steps. So, the objective of 筑基 or building the foundation is to prepare our body, mind, and other factors for practice, and to make our body healthier and stronger to establish a strong and stable foundation for better results with the next full step of our practice. By the way, another term used to describe the 筑基 or building the foundation step is called 练己. 练 means cultivate, practice, or refine. 己 means earth, which represents the middle area or the mind in 修道. So, 练己 means to cultivate ourselves or our mind, especially our mind. Also, some schools differentiate between 筑基 and 练己 by emphasizing different objectives. For example, 练己 focuses on 性功 or intrinsic nature practice, while 筑基 focuses on 命功 or life or vital energy practice. Even so, overall, they just emphasize different aspects of the same step. It is worth noting that different steps of 修道 apply different variations of the 筑基 method, but overall, they all share a similar approach. Their differences lie in the specific method. That is beyond the scope of this video. I will introduce this topic in dedicated videos in the future. To summarize, this section compared internal and external elixir practice in the context of the three key terms, 筑基, 还原, and 补漏, along with some other related terms. I also mentioned the relationship between these three key terms. The 筑基 step include 还原 and 补漏. I also introduced their relationship that 筑基 or building the foundation is a category of a step, including many sub-steps such as 还原 and 补漏. Now, let's move on to the next topic, in which I will introduce three key principles of these three key terms. Topic 4. Principles of the practices of these terms. A fundamental step of 修道 practice definitely involves many important principles, especially in internal elixir practice. The teaching method used in ancient times was based on teaching principles instead of focusing on any specific physical trainings as a martial art. Since understanding some principles is a critical part of 修道 training, this section deserves more attention from a practitioner. I cannot emphasize this enough. So, in this section, I'd like to introduce three important principles and briefly elaborate on them one by one. They are: first, 筑基与练己合一； second, 补漏与还原同修； third, 玄关开启乃真消息。 Let me explain. First, 筑基与练己合一。 筑基 means building the foundation. 练己 means cultivate the mind or cultivate the prenatal mind. 筑基 and 练己 are intertwined. In other words, 练己 is a part of the 筑基 and the 筑基 is a part of 练己. Very often, in 修道 practice, these two steps are introduced separately. However, in practice, they should not be separated due to their intertwined nature. Ancient 修道 documents very often introduced intertwined terms separately in order to emphasize their individual benefits. While 筑基 and 练己 emphasize different aspects, they are both effectively the same practice. So, in practice, 筑基 and 练己 should be merged as one in order to maximize their benefits. Second, 补漏与还原同修。补漏 means repairing the leakage, which is the practice that changes the worldly way of action to the inward and reverse way of action. 还原 means to restore the body and mind to its original state. It may seem as if they are two different steps. Actually, they are intertwined as well. 补漏 will help restore the body and mind to their original state, while 还原 practice will help our body and mind stop leakage. So, even though they both apply different aspects of a practice, dealing with them as one is the ideal method in training. Third, 玄关开启乃真消息。玄关 means mystery gate. The moment one postnatal energy starts to convert to prenatal energy. 开启 means opening, emerging. 乃 means is. 真消息 means real message, real moment. Put together, it means in the energy refinement process, the emerging of the mystery gate is the real moment when energy refinement is in the ultimate state. So, in the 筑基 step, one important signal for one to reach the right level of this step is the emergence of the 玄关 or mystery gate. 玄关's emergence is an indicator that one is ready to move on to the next step. The 玄关 concept is a critical one in 修道 practice, which I have elaborated on in prior videos. Check out my video titled Mystery Gate or 玄关 in 修道 7. The link is in the description. Those were three of the many important principles of 筑基 practice. However, if you have a chance, you should look at this topic more in order to understand this critical concept on a deeper level. I will definitely introduce more in the future. Now, let me debunk a common misperception in the next topic. Topic 5. Misperception. A fundamental concept and the practice of 修道 will definitely have misperceptions in the community. Actually, those misperceptions are not new at all. 修道 practice has existed for thousands of years. Different types of misperceptions have occurred during its development process in history. In other words, the development of 修道 is the process to clarify misperceptions and continue working on the right method in practice. A common misperception, for example, is that some people believe that one can skip the 筑基 or building the foundation step and directly work on the 4 main steps. This is a misperception. Let's debunk it. Yes, the 4 main steps are very important since they form the main part of a 修道 system. However, in order to achieve the ideal result, one has to first work on 筑基, or else further progress will be very slow. Or even worse, some unexpected results may also occur. For example, the energy may go to the wrong place in the body since the mind is not ready to handle so many energetic experiences without having a strong practice foundation. In other words, building the foundation is not only to make sure the body, mind, and other factors are ready for further practice, but more importantly, it also ensures the practitioners will have enough experience to handle upcoming energetic experiences naturally. In Xiu Dao practice, as is planned at the beginning of this video, our internal energy refinement process is similar to the external elixir refinement process in that certain factors of a practice should be ready in order to not only maximize the effect, but more importantly, to avoid any side effects which would otherwise be caused by the lack of readiness physically, mentally, as well as energetically. I have seen many people experience unexpected energy deviations caused by incorrect practice, and most of their mistakes resulted from skipping the Zhu Ji step. So please pay special attention to this step from now on. Topic 6. Takeaways. First, the fundamental step before the 4 main steps. A key step that has very often been neglected by many Xiu Dao practitioners is the Zhu Ji, or building the foundation step. It is the critical one since it helps practitioners ensure readiness physically, mentally, and energetically. Second, historical background of the key terms in external elixir practice. Taoist internal elixir and external elixir practice used the same set of terms in history, especially at the early stage. As a result, a lot of terms used in internal elixir practice were actually directly borrowed from the external elixir practice. So, a better way to understand the meaning of the term used in internal elixir practice nowadays is to understand the original meaning used in ancient times. 3. How to practice internal elixir based on these terms. First, stop and repair the leaking by adopting the Taoist way. Then ensure our body, mind are ready for the next 4 main steps in Xiu Dao practice. 4. Principles of the practices of these terms. First, 筑基与练己合一. Building a foundation and cultivate oneself should be unified as one. Second, 补漏与还原同修. Stopping and repairing the leakage and returning to the original state should be practiced simultaneously. 3. 玄关开启乃真消息. In the energy refinement process, the emerging of the mystery gate is the real moment when energy refinement is in the ultimate state. 7th, misperception. Some people believe that one can skip the Zhu Ji, or building the foundation step, and directly work on the 4 main steps. Remember, that is a misperception. You absolutely need to practice the Zhu Ji in order to prepare yourself and reap the ideal benefit of the 4 main steps of Xiu Dao practice. That brings us to the end of today's video. Thanks for watching, see you next time, and enjoy your practice.